Hello everybody, welcome to yet another tutorial about frames per second and slow motion. And now we are going to do the slow motion in Adobe After Effects. This is a quick guide, so I'm going to give you an overview over the other tutorials in the end of this tutorial. So in the After Effects, you put in this time stretch factor, and if you want a half speed over a 50 or 60 frames per second source file, then you put in 200 in the stretch factor. We can then have a quick look at if you have a 240 frames per second source file. If you want a 240 frames per second source file in 4 times slower, then they end up with 60 frames per second. Then it's the stretch factor, it's 400. All this calculation, not advanced at all, but anyway, it's kind of nice to have this overview. I put this into a convert table, a slow motion convert table. So again, if you have a 60 frames per second shot, you want it in half speed, you end up with 30 frames per second. And then you have this time stretch factor 200. Or if you want video shot done with, for instance, the GoPro Hero 3, the Black Edition, and it's in 240 frames per second, and you want it 8 times slower, then you put in the stretch factor 800. So this slow motion convert table, I find it very useful. I hope you won't find it useful as well, and if you want it, you can download it for free at yetanothersolution.blogspot.com. And now we are going to go directly into Adobe After Effects, and as you can see here, we have this source file with this cross country. This is source file. You can click on it, and then you see here up in the left hand side it's 240 frames per second. And as you can see, this composition, after we imported this source file, we ended up with 99 frames per second, which is the maximum for rendering out composition in After Effects. So then I really recommend you to go and have a look at the composition settings and then change it. And we are going to do this clip here in half speed first, so then we end up with 29.97 frames per second, which will be really useful if we want to render out in NTSC system. We can go and have a look at the convert table just for fun there. As you can see here, if you have 240 frames per second, half of that will be 120 frames per second, and half of that will be 60 frames per second, and again half of that 30 frames per second. And then I think this is really nice then to put the end result to the 29.97 frames per second. So then with this chosen, you can see there that we have this new frames per second now here up in the composition. Then it's really easy to do a half speed. Then you just right click here on in the timeline on the source file. Then you go in under time stretch. And as you can see here, then you get this duration of the source file, it's 2 seconds. And for sure then, when you put in 200, then you have 4 seconds. Okay, I took it down a little bit fast. Time stretch. As you can see here, this new duration here will be 4 seconds. Okay. And then we can take a quick ramp review here on this half speed. It's a little bit laggy now because I'm doing the screen recording at the same time. So as you can see here, we are not playing in the real time, but I think you understand the thing about this. So now we are going to do different. We are going to slow down to even I think 10 times slower. That's the maximum of the video clip, and then we can go to the convert table again 10 times slower. Then we will end up with 24 frames per second. So then we can go into the composition settings again, composition settings, and then we can choose 24 frames per second directly, press OK, and then we can then go in the timeline again, and then time stretch factor, time stretch factor. Then the time stretch factor is 1000. And as you can see now, when we have pressed 1000, then we have the new duration, which is 20 seconds. As you can see here on the convert table, sorry, once more. On the convert table here, you can see that if you want it 10 times slower, then the time stretch factor is 1000. Not advanced, this convert table, but anyway, very useful. Okay, then press OK. But as you can see here now, the timeline here is still just 2 seconds. If you want to change that, then you go into composition settings again, and then you can change this for to do 20 seconds, so we have all the clip in the composition here. Okay, so then we have this in 10 times slower. Again, it's not real time here because of the screen recording here. Okay, so I think you understood that. We are going to stop this, and then we are going to go back to the presentation. As you can see here, on yet another solution.plusprod.com, the blog there, you can for free download this video clip and this video clip, this with 50 frames per second and this with 240 frames per second, if you want to have some clip to play around with in your software, maybe in After Effects or some other software. And for sure, as I told you, this yet another solution.plusprod.com slow motion convert table is also free to download there. Okay, I hope you found this useful, but in the end now I'm going to give you a short, quick overview over the other tutorials in this series of total 11 tutorials. I really recommend you to go to tutorial number 2, where we are going deeper into frames per second. We also recommend you to go to tutorial number 3, because there we are having a look at some of the user interface in QuickTime Player 7 Pro. It's a really nice software to have together with more advanced editors. And for sure, I recommend you to go to tutorial number 4 or 5, where we are going deeper into slow motion in different softwares, and we are covering up this convert table and more detail there. Okay, I hope you found this useful. I hope you will be back on other tutorials again.